Hello everyone. We are going to get started with our lesson. This is a lesson about when will I ever use addition and subtraction equations. Basically some application questions that will help you see how addition and subtraction equations can actually apply to your lives. So let's go ahead and get started. Several of these will have to do with money because money is numbers. If I make $7.35 an hour and I spend $3.75 on gas getting to work and $5.25 on lunch, how much will I make after working a 4-hour shift? Now, we're going to go ahead and solve this. And I want you to pay attention a little bit to the process that we're going through to solve this. First off, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. We're going to write an equation to solve this. And to do that, I have to identify how much do I make. So I make $7.35 times the number of hours I work. So we're going to call the number of hours I work H for hours. So the amount that I make would be $7.35 times H, the number of hours I work. Or in other words, $7.35H. We can just write it like that. And that's how much money I make. All right, no matter how many hours I work, that's how much money I make. If I work 4 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours, I make $7.35 times the number of hours I work. This will make our lives easier in the future, trust me. All right, how much money do I spend? Now, the amount you spend is consistent every single time. You spend the same amount, I'm assuming, on gas and lunch. So we're going to just add those numbers, $3.75 plus $5.25, nice round $9. So every day you go to work, you're spending $9. So now we need to figure out how much money I'm going to actually take home after the shift. And if I make $7.35 times the number of hours I work, 7.35H, and I spend $9 every single time, the equation for how much I actually make is going to look like this. It's how much I make, how much money I make, minus how much money I spend. And so what we're going to do is just plug in that information. The amount that I make is 7.35H. The amount that I spend is $9. I can just write that as 9 just to make the equation a little bit simpler. And that's how much money I actually take home, right there. Now, we've created an equation that hopefully makes a little bit of sense. All right? And I'll show you in just a minute how this will make our lives easier to have this equation. But so the amount that you make, $7.35 per hour, minus the $9 you're spending on gas and lunch, will tell you how much money you're going to actually take home after the shift. So let's go ahead and answer this question now. We've worked for 4 hours, so H is equal to 4. I'm going to go ahead and substitute that value right into the equation, 7.35 times 4, and then take away that $9. 7.35 times 4 will give us $29.40, or 29.4, minus 9, which leaves us with 20.4, or $20.40. $20.40 is how much you're actually taking home. All right, so you're going to take home $20.40. Of course, you're going to, well, we're not getting taxes involved in all of this, so that would be more complicated. This is just a basic question. Let's say you're working for your grandparents or something. I don't know. They're not charging you taxes. I don't know. I'm just making the math question easier. So there we go, $20.40 right there. Now, why did we need to make this equation? You could have said, I know I make 7.35 times 4, so I can just do 7.35 times 4. That's how much I made. And then I'm going to subtract 3.75, and then I'm going to subtract 5.25. And that might have been quicker for the first question. But if we write this equation, now we have something that will help us no matter what. Watch this. I've just changed. The only thing I changed was that you work for 6 hours instead of 4. And you can take that 6 hours now and plug it straight into the equation. So you can actually save yourself a little bit of time. Instead of, and let's say you work for 10 hours, plug that in. Let's say you work for 8 hours, plug that in. Let's say you work for 2 hours, plug that in. And you can plug in however many hours you work and use this same equation. Then you only have to do 2 steps to solve it. Plug in 6 and solve. You plug in the value of 6, 7.35 times 6 is 44.10, minus your $9, you have $35.10 to go home with. Whoops. All right, so making an equation is actually a way to help save us time. What if we work 6.5 hours? What if we work 5 hours, 15 minutes? You know, any amount that you work, you can just plug right into this equation. And you've gone ahead and created a math equation using subtraction and multiplication in this case, but mainly we're talking about subtraction today. So those subtraction equations that will help you. All right, now we're going to look a little bit at tables, and then we'll talk about money again later on because money's, I don't know, relevant. So here's a table. It's this table shows the amount of rainfall for an entire week: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The centimeters of rainfall. If you have a garden like I do, it's important that you get about 1 inch of rain per day. So about 2.54 centimeters of rain per week, I'm sorry. To keep your garden watered, also if you have plants like trees and bushes and stuff like that, you want about 1 inch of rain, 2.54 centimeters. So when we look at a rain gauge, it'll tell you how much rain fell. And it's important that you measure rain gauge every day. So let's take a look at this, see how much rain fell, and then see if we need to turn on our sprinklers. To do that, what we need to do is find out what operations we would use. How would we figure out how much rain has fallen? Well, you can use addition to add up the total numbers, and that will tell you the total amount of rainfall. And then you can use subtraction to find the difference. Remember that word means subtraction. The difference between what you need, 2.54, and what you actually have. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to use addition to add up all these numbers: 0.0, 0.5, 0.000, 1.2, and 0.8. Right? We add those up and it gives us 2.5. So that week we got 2.5 centimeters of rain. We need 2.54 centimeters of rain. So we're going to go ahead and do a quick subtraction question. 2.54 minus 2.5, and that will tell us the amount of water we need. 0.4 centimeters of water is not a lot. All right? So probably if you got 2.5 centimeters, that would probably be enough for the week and your plants wouldn't die. You could turn the sprinklers on for about 10 minutes, probably in the evening, and you'd be fine. All right. Anyway, not even 10 minutes. To get 0.4 centimeters is kind of silly. Or 0.04, I'm sorry, 0.04 centimeters. So this is a really, really small amount. All right. The last question we're going to look at, again, is an addition-subtraction question using amount of money. On Friday, I spent $3.25 on some apps. Then I bought sunglasses for $10. If I now have $15.67 in the bank, how much money did I start with? So this question, it's important to look at how much, what the question's asking. Okay. So now it's time to make up an equation. How much money did I start with? We're going to call S. I started with S. However much that was, I don't know. But we started with S, and we subtracted. That's the amount I have in the bank, the starting amount. I just picked S. You could have picked B for bank or whatever, or A for amount. I don't know. But S is the amount we start with. We're going to subtract the amount you spent on the apps at the App Store. You're going to subtract the amount that you spent on your sunglasses. And you know, after you subtract those amounts, you end up with $15.67. So we're going to go ahead and simplify that by joining together these two numbers, 325 and 10, that we're taking away. So we're going to take away 1325. That's how much we spent total. And so how much we started with minus 1325 leaves us with 1567. This is an equation with subtraction. This one here is a great question because we have to use the property of equality. We have to get S by itself. To do that, we need to do the opposite of whatever this is on both sides of the equation. We have to get S by itself. Well, we had S, then we subtracted 13.25, so we have to do the inverse or the opposite. We have to add 13.25. And when we do that, this cancels out. Negative 13.25, positive 13.25, they cancel out, and that's how we get left with just S on the left side. But to keep the equation balanced, if we added 13.25 over here, we also had to add 13.25 over there. We do that, and we end up with the amount that I started with in the bank account was $28.92. because we added those numbers together. So you can see, again, a practical application of using addition, subtraction equations. So there you go, a couple of examples of how we would use addition, subtraction equations and incorporating money and also tables.